Hello and welcome. My name is Andy Salkeld and this is a video on setting up a Warhammer table. I've been going through a bit of a series on kind of how to get into competitive Warhammer, what to do, what to kind of think about, etc. And this was kind of just something that came to my mind this morning as I'm about to do what I do most Saturdays, which is have friends over, play a couple of games, 4 games of Warhammer, something like that, across 2 tables. And I thought I'd share the process I go through setting up a table, what it means, what it's like, etc., and what I'm thinking about. Just so that as someone new watching this enters the game, Pika is full on zooming, so apologies. As someone is new entering the game, can set up their own table and can be like, okay, this is where Andy got this from, this is where he got that from, to help people kind of get into it and to learn what to expect at an event and so on. So what you will see behind me and where most of this will take place is I've cleared the chairs around my kitchen table because you need to be able to walk around the table, and then I will set up that table, and then halfway through I will twist the camera around and I will set up the other table that's much closer. So I'll be standing up, I'll be at the back a lot of the time, but this just gives you an idea of what it's like to set it up. So as with all these things, I'm not really one to kind of shill myself, but do feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share, etc., because it helps me know that it's worthwhile keeping doing these. I'm just doing this to help other people overcome the kind of social anxiety that goes with it. And the more these get shared around, the more people comment nice things, as a lot of people have done, the easier it is for me to know that it's wanted and to keep going. And also, tell me what else you'd like to see, because this is something that came to me whilst I was in the shower this morning. So we'll see if it works, we'll see if it doesn't, it might not. I will have to shout over there. So anyway, let's get on with it. I'll move the chair out the way and then you'll see me. I'll be dotting in and out the camera because the camera's static, as it's what my webcam is. But hopefully you'll get the gist because I'll keep narrating what I'm doing. So let's crack on. So, key things. My table is not the correct size for this. So what I've had to do is I've had to buy kind of boards that sit on top of my table. And these boards are... I just got them from B&Q, which is just... Was it B&Q? Yeah, I think it was. It's just a hardware manufacturer, hardware wholesaler, etc. over in the UK. And what I did is I got them cut to the exact specifications I wanted. And I had them kind of a couple of inches bigger, so they're actually set up as 6x4, which is the old kind of terrain, the old terrain layout. Tika, chill out, girl. And then what I did was I had them cut into quarters for easy storage. So that's what I'm getting at right now. Is these boards down here, and we load them up one at a time. Yes, darling. Hello. Okay, off she goes. So this is all they are, and just whilst I'm remembering, these are 18mm MDF. So, and I believe each one is 15 inches by 60 inches. No, it's 60 by 20, I think, something like that. And then when it folds out, because what that does is that gives a nice border around the edge. And what I've done with all of these is I've put a magnetic strip, so just a strip magnet in between, because that means it won't roll and slide. And that was the first step I did, was I put out anti-slip kind of fabric. Because the last thing you want with loads of expensive models that you've put a lot of time into is to knock the table, have it slip, knock a board onto the floor, etc. So I'm always very conscious of that, and very conscious of the fact that my friends bring their models that they've spent a lot of time and effort on. So I want to make sure that it's a good environment for everyone and their models. You'll see that I am occasionally checking back at the camera, but I just want to make sure the microphone's picking up what I'm doing. So now, got a playing surface. It's a little bit bigger than the actual game board, and that's because it's often useful to have kind of things like dead space where you can store miniatures. Now I have the play map. Now this map is one that I really like. It was done by Wayland Yutani, I think that's the name of the company, for the WTC, which is the World Team Championship. The reason I like it is it has the measurements for deployment zones and kind of inches on the mat, which makes it very, very easy to know exactly where you are when you're setting up terrain. So I'm just going to, given it's been folded because we haven't played in a few weeks, just going to roll it the other way. Right, there we go. So it's a little bit heavy at the edges. So we will just stick down some heavy-ish books to try to thin or try to sort out this curl a bit. Just sticking the books down to try and sort that out. Then what I do is tape measure, dice for positioning, objective markers, and then the terrain and mission pack. So I'm from the UK, as you can probably tell by my wonderful accent, and most UK tournaments, to my knowledge, there are a few exceptions, run what is referred to as the UKTC tournament pack, which is what you'll find at London Grand Tournament, every event run by the same company, but it's also what is run by most local stores who run RTTs, GTs, etc. There are a few exceptions, namely the one I went to this year is Goonhammer. So Goonhammer ran its own terrain, own FAQ, and everything like that. Where you get them from doesn't matter. The reason I like them and the reason I think it's important to kind of use a tournament pack is they balance the terrain for you. A lot of people have asked me about player place terrain, and I always feel bad because I've never played on it, and to be honest, I don't trust it. It's just that it is another layer of complexity on top of an already complex game. So what I feel with player place terrain is someone who has practiced it will be infinitely better at it than someone who has never played on it, and it creates a larger skill gap. Now obviously if you're looking for that sort of environment that creates a big skill gap, then it's worthwhile looking into it. Few comments on it typically between basically shooting armies and combat armies. Just for those that have asked questions, shooting armies typically want to use their non-ruin, non-obscuring terrain in the center of the board as quickly as possible. So if they get the first turn, they very quickly put a crate in the middle because you have to deploy 4 or 6 inches away from it. And what that means is that creates this massive firing lane just straight in the middle into their deployment zone. And what you do as a shooting army is you essentially try to keep mid-board completely empty with your drops, and you essentially use your terrain as mechanisms to push your opponent's terrain back, which makes it much harder for them to contest your objectives as a combat army, etc., etc. As a combat army, you want to do the reverse. You want to use your ruins in the middle as staging points. You almost want your entire army to be able to move from ruin to ruin to ruin to charge, etc. I haven't played it, so I can't really comment much more beyond that. But I'm not a big fan of it in general, just because of the way it it's another skill gap in an already skill gappy focused game. What what I need to think about is what missions do we want to play today. So typically you will repeatedly play the first 5 rounds of a tournament because GTs are 3. You will always play those 3 missions, and GTs are typically 5, so you will always play the first 3 plus 2. Longer events will play maybe 6 or round 6 and 7 at the end for the top cut, but you need to practice those less and so on. So the ones you typically practice are 1 through 5 of the pack. Today, I think we're going to try out Data Scry Salvage. So what these packs do is, you won't be able to see here, so I'll just wander closer. They give you a little map like this, which essentially says, here's what the ruins look like, here's where they go, and there's a little bit beforehand. You can find the WTC pack, the UKTC pack on the UK Tournaments website. It's free to download, anyone can get it. Fantastic source. Please use it, please support them, because they do something great for this community. Equally, you can find the WTC pack on their website, and most tournament organisers have their packs on their website. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to set up this one. There's 6 objective missions. So the way I typically do this is I do the objectives first. I do also have the Nephilim book here, because it is that pack. They fix it in the little thing they do, but it doesn't have the exact locations of the objective. So we're going to start off with the objectives. It matters about the center of the battlefield. Then 12 inches, 12 inches. So from the center out, leave that flat. This is at roughly 37. So 12 inches off that goes to 25. Put the objective marker down, and then 12 inches from 37 goes to 25, and then 12 inches from 25 goes to 13. This is where everyone who watches it, Andy, you can't do maths. I'm like, yep, because I studied maths. And this circle's 9, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so that's one side done. We do next side. This corner from the middle. This time I actually quite enjoy this mission. Very, very challenging as a Sisters player. Because you are because of needing to stand in the open for a turn, but you can kind of get something. You can do some things that make it. The reason I set up the objectives first is terrain typically stands on top of the. So what I try to do is get the objectives down and then put the terrain on top. Now, I can't remember where I bought these objective markers from, but they're fairly standard. You can get them in most. If you just search online for objective markers, I think people 3D print them as well now. But yeah, I've just always ran these and been exceptionally happy with them all the time. Final 18. The reason it's important, well, the reason I find these missions and objectives so, like, these default layouts or tournament layouts to be so effective is that one of the hardest things with the 40k battlefield is to balance it across different armies. Now, I don't know whether they've actually tested with every single possible faction, but I found these to be mostly balanced. The one thing I would say is UKTC and the UK tournament circuit in general loves shooting armies, absolutely love a gun line. And there are some objectives that are notoriously out in the open and just going to die. So it does, and as we set this up, you will see it does exemplify that. So I just want to go through that. So now, next bit is terrain. So as you'll see, this is one of the typical, I think they're called Kallax boxes from IKEA. And I can fit my entire terrain set from the WTC into this box, which is one of the reasons I love it. Again, this is a terrain kit done by Wayland Yutani from the WTC. Importantly, these are not the exact dimensions that fit the UKTC tournament pack. I don't own a terrain kit for those. So that might be a purchase when I have more space. I am kind of limited in space in my apartment here, and there's only so much terrain I can kind of hold down. When I've got more space, I will likely get them. So what you'll see is we have small L's, and these are all, I think it's called foam card foam, something like that. So we have small L's, the joints that hold them together, and we have the big L's, which are pieced of the small L's. And then these just slot together to form exactly what you need. And we have, this uses only 2 forests. So we have 2 forests with various bits, 2B forests. This terrain pack doesn't use crates, and crates are kind of synonymous with 40k. So it is strange not using crates, but that is just the way of it. And then what I do is I loosely place everything around the field. Oh, I got the wrong. Let's get another. Opposite. Yeah. So, and then we just slot it all together. I loosely place it around the field, and then I get into measuring it. So, I have never had any problems with this terrain pack. I think I've snapped one bit of foam board, but I just gaffer taped it back together. The key thing I find as someone who plays in his own home as well as out is storage. Storing terrain is an absolute nightmare, unless you have stuff like this that folds down, etc. So yeah, as you'll see, what I'm doing is I'm loosely placing these in all the places they should be. Then, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, so terrain storage is a nightmare. There are some I found this one to be great. One of the communities I'm part in, Tabletop Titans, they launched their own terrain kit last year. And it is now available, and I'm just waiting for my kit to arrive. and that's essentially a pop-up terrain kit from kind of folding cardboard. I'm excited to see what it's like. I'm a little concerned about, I suppose for me it's about how it gets picked up for tournament circuits, etc. Because if it doesn't get picked up for tournaments, it'll be absolutely amazing from a perspective as perspective of a player, because it'll just be like, this is great, I've got a board in a box that folds up, pops down, etc. But if you are a competitive player and wanting to go into a competitive scene, I don't know how easily it will replicate that environment for you. That's my only concern about it. I think it is an absolutely fantastic product for its price point and for the person like me and others who play at home. But its uses can fall off when it comes to tournament practice. And that only really matters if you are a serious tournament goer and seriously want to go and you want to do well. I am not someone that thinks I can do well at these things. Yeah, that looks like it. Looks like it's a bit nice, but hey. I think I've pushed this too far this way, because as I say, this is I'm doing my best with the terrain I have to set these up. Yeah, and then what we do is we just go into filling out the ruins and measuring out exactly where they should go. So this is kind of a slow-ish process, but it's fine. And as you'll see, what I'm doing is I'm basically just popping in the support structure here. These just pull out, pull down. I'm such a big fan of this terrain. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So you won't hear me say bad things about it. But pick terrain that works for you. Ultimately, this is a game that really supports individuals and what they enjoy, and it can be customized in so many ways. This isn't the most thematic terrain. Lots of people like their armies and their beautifully painted miniatures to be on very cinematic, very beautifully painted terrain. I am not that way. I consider myself an awful painter. I'm a player first and a painter second, hobbyist second, whatever word you want to attach to it. So I look at function over form, I believe is a term for it. So for me, it's all about can I set up a good tabletop experience with what I have? Am I going to enjoy playing on it? Is it going to functionally do what I need it to do, which is creating ruins, etc. So some people will not like this terrain. I am a fan of it just because it is exactly what I want in terrain. I want it to be able to store easily. I want it to be able to do what I need it to, which is be a ruin, and not much more. Be appropriately sized. As I say, these are probably about an inch too long for the UKTC events. So what I always have to do when I'm imagining a UKTC event is, okay, well, I need to assume my ruins are going to be slightly smaller than this, because in most cases, and it's no bad thing. As I say, you do make the best with what you can. This kit set me back $100, $200, something like that. So I'm not looking to buy another set of terrain so far. I already have another set of terrain that I don't play on that often, or that is used for my second table. And that's more thematic, and you'll see when we get to say up to the second table. But this is the one I like playing on because it's it's the closest approximation to UKT. It sounds bad, but I set up the tables. I host everyone here in my house. So I like playing on my table with my board. And so I often play on this one. And then I have a second table over there to allow us to play multiple games at the same time. The reason I ended up doing this is we kind of went through the normal learning curve of Warhammer, where you can learn by watching people play. So you can you'll play a game, or you'll watch a game and you'll see the decisions. You'll be like, oh, I would have done that different. I'd have done that different. Blah, blah, blah. And we reached a point where watching didn't kind of add to our knowledge. It kind of helped, like for me, watching still helps because it helps me understand, one, my opponents, and two, my the terrain. And I think that's really important, how different armies function on the terrain. Which is why I'm still happy to watch people play, whereas some people are not, do not enjoy that. So so what happened was, got to a point where actually just having one game happen, then another. So playing consecutive games one after another didn't kind of do enough for us because there's kind of between 4 and 6 of us. So doing that, like 4 people were sat out, or 5, or kind of more people were sat out. So we needed more games, and I just have enough space to set up a second table in the same room. So I just kind of bought the bits necessary to do it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to look down here and I'm going to set up these next terrain bits. So these are, so this back ruin is 5 inches, 5 inches. So very simply we do. But these are an inch too long, so we do 4 inches, 4 inches. They are about right. Inches. So I know that piece is now done. I do exactly the same over here. So 4 inches. Now, when you are at an event, it's often up to the players to ensure their terrain is kind of laid out as the packs say. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to practice setting up a Warhammer table, because you kind of need it to you need to be able to do this at an event, and you need to be able to do it relatively quickly. So this one, I know, starts there. This one starts on that line, and I just need to measure how far along it is. This is the one frustrating thing about this, is these pop out a bit. So just need to be wary of that. 9 inches up. And how far along? 26. Probably need to check that that's not 26 and 9, takes that to there. And nudge that. Nope, that looks fine. That looks fine. 1. Right up. Put it on the 22 line. Then I'll do the here. Yeah, that should actually be. No, 22 works. As I say, because these are slightly bigger, the measurements don't work as much, but you just try to create it as best you can. That explains why that looks correct one. So yeah, this is by no means like setting up terrain is by no means like guaranteed to be correct. What you're trying to do is just make a balanced field so that it's fair and fun for you and your opponent. 48 and 12. And you're just trying to create a good kind of setup. This needs to be 6 inches. Yeah. 4 inches. And yeah, like I said, this is just a. We are not hard practicing for an event. My next event is in January. I am playing the GT at Leodis Games again, and don't give this one a. So I'm playing at the GT at Leodis Games. I will likely be playing Sisters. That will largely be determined by whether what the data slate, if any, holds. Because the data slate is like, not that I'm expecting significant Sisters nerfs or anything like that, but I am expecting there to be points adjustments in the faction. And I don't know how much time I will have to paint up new models or new things like that. Way too far. I didn't measure it. Again, a lot of this is kind of like you end up learning what looks about right, and then just slowly getting it to the correct position from there. And again, this is one of the reasons why I love having the measurements on the map, because it means that you can go, oh, well, I had to be 26 inches. Oi, you, get down. Get down. Yes, you. You know you're not meant to be on there. Understand. Fine. There, we largely have a table set up. So that's how, basically what I do with setting up a table. There is a lot of measurements and stuff like this. As I showed you in the pack, it kind of gives you all the details for how you set up the terrain, how it works, how it looks, etc. But you make do with what you have. these are not the exact UKTC bits of terrain. I find storing those bits of terrain more awkward because they're this, but they don't flat pack nicely, and they have fixed bases, which means that you have to store everything in kind of cubes, and therefore it just it becomes very awkward to store them. Like, you end up with much space, whereas this fits into a single kallax. This is how I set up one table. Now what we're going to do, let me just move my chair out of the way, and I'll rotate the camera. You'll get to see more of my apartment now. I've done this a lot, so I know exactly where every bit of kind of... So now, assuming that is probably not enough, so let me just put that back there. And then what I'll try to do is, because we are setting up, I need it over there. So let's see how far this camera can go. Oh yeah, there's a bend in there. As I said, this is completely unplanned, but I thought I would at least attempt to show it because it's such an important part. Okay, so this is where my second table goes. You can see into my kind of living room space here, and this is what I would consider more of a if you're just wanting to start from fresh. Let me put this up a bit, given it's going to be kind of on me for a lot of this. Yeah, this is not stable here, so this is going to be challenging. But yeah, so this is what I would consider is going to be more of a kind of just a kitchen table game, less about tournament practice, less about kind of getting the correct mat. This is getting the looks and feels right. I haven't put a lot of effort into painting this terrain, but this is kind of how it's done. So I'll try and lower this. And you're going to end up with a lot of shots of my stomach here, so I apologise for that. What I have hidden back here is I have a second table. So this is a fold-out camping table, or picnic table, I can't remember what they're called. I got it for about 50, 60 quid, something like that. And this just folds out nicely, slots in here. Then what I have is similar to the other boards. I have two larger MDF boards here, and these form the play surface on the second table. Now these are cut precisely to 44, I believe it is, which means there's very little kind of there's very little spare space in these. Now these are a little bit more awkward to play on, just because I don't have infinite room in my apartment. So I just try to create enough space that people can play on, and have enough space to move around, etc. So what you'll see is this is the second table. It's kind of played here, and then the first table is over here, and we just go from there. Now we get the second mat out. This one is more thematic. There's no measurements on it. It's double-sided for different kind of looks and feels. This one is from Game Mat EU, which is a which mostly does just game mats. I think that might be where I got the objective markers from as well, because they're the same sort of neoprene material. Neoprene? Yeah, this is a more thematic mat. It makes it harder to set up. I also don't have a second lot of objective markers. So what I do is I set up the terrain, and then when my friends get here, they bring the objective markers with them. That allows, and then they set up those objective markers on the table. That's kind of how it goes. So this next bit of terrain is from TT Combat, I believe it is. And this is a terrain pack that you can get from, where is it? So you can order it direct from their website. I'm just going to tilt the camera up a little bit since I'm now going to be based over this side. You get more shots of me actually doing this. You can get this from most sources. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I'm not sponsored by any of these people. I just believe in crediting good work. I don't want people thinking this is an advert or anything. It's not. I just like telling people that they've done a good job, because it doesn't happen enough in our society as a general point. So I always make. If you want to buy TT Combat Terrain, I'd highly recommend my friend's business, which is called Travelling Man. So Travelling Man is a kind of hobby store and website that I've been going to for years. I think it's almost been over 2 decades. It might be longer. Yes, I am old. They do it. They also do all miniatures, everything like that. Again, not sponsored, just believe in supporting my friends and their hard work. So if you do want to kind of support us in a way, I guess. Obviously, everything to do with this channel is to do with me. But if you want to help my friends out, buy stuff from them, because they're great and it'll help them grow their business and everything like that. Right, so this is the true kind of test of terrain, where you maybe don't have the exact bits of terrain you want. So you have to make do with what you have. This is exactly the case with this. This doesn't have appropriately sized L's, appropriately sized anything. You kind of just have to do what you can with what you have, sort of thing. So this is always the challenging table to set up, because it requires a little bit more thought and decision. What I try to do is I try to use similar bits of terrain to similar things. Kind of the best I can do with this bit of terrain. Again, I bought this terrain before I wanted to heavily go to tournaments. So, and then once we'd kind of got into the mindset of going to tournaments, I realised this wasn't the most tournament appropriate terrain to play on. Therefore, I started getting the other set of terrain, which gives us better tournament practice for terrain. Sorry, getting messages, but that's not important right now. So again, we're going to loosely lay this out, because we know it's got the 2 central corner ruins like that. We're going to use these bits of terrain to denote those, and then we're going to have this is a here bit, here bit. These all like this. Then we have, yeah, you just kind of have to make do with the bits you have. So these are definitely longer and probably shallower. And the other thing that you can do is what you're trying to replicate in a lot of these cases, just having good terrain in your home field to be able to deploy behind safely, and then you just, because having a little mad panic in a corner down here. I kind of just need a little bit to just extend these ruins. Actually, I'm using the same bits of kit in the same spaces. Doesn't look. At least keep some of the lore. Lore. Not really a lore person. And this just kind of gives you a good look as to what you can do with just the standard terrain. What I'm going to have to do is now I need to get into the measurements. I need to set up this terrain more precisely because it doesn't have the actual lines on it that help me set up the other ones. This one requires a lot more precision too. This needs to be in 5. Okay. This one is also 5 inches in. And yeah, I bought this terrain kit when I kind of started and wanted to have people over to play Warhammer. And I wanted to get the kit that I felt matched this is a battle, because that's what I play. So on. So now, I need to mark out the get the various miracle dice and so on that I have. So it's 20, 40 inches, 29. Yeah, this is kind of a more accurate play-at-home experience, I guess. Whereas what I'm trying to replicate in the other board is a more accurate play-at-tournament experience. And it's not to say that they are different, it's just to say, well, they are different, but it's just this is what I got when I first started playing, when I wasn't too bothered about playing in tournaments, and then I, shall we say, graduated playing on the other boards. And what you have to do when you are deciding whether you want to play at home, play at tournaments, etc., is decide the environment, or decide the kind of what you're looking to replicate, things like that, because they are very, very different experiences, and some of them are way more or nice than others, and you need to just be sure as to what you want out of them and everything. So that's my line. Oh, God. Inches. Again, we're doing our best to replicate, not to not going to be precise because these sorts of things are not that precise. This goes up to what you'll notice as I'm setting this up is this terrain is much smaller and therefore creates more kind of, this is the terrain you would kind of practice on if you wanted to practice against a army, because it's going to make it much harder to hide. You need to be much more precise with your movement. So that's actually off. Whereas, so yeah, you just need to be, ultimately make the board that is best for you, but pick your terrain appropriately. But for games at home, pick your terrain appropriately for what you want to achieve. Because you could buy terrain being like, this is excellent, this is exactly what I want, this is kind of the environment I want, etc. And then, which is kind of what happened with me. I bought this terrain being like, this is what I want to play, I'm happy with this, I think it looks cool, it's thematic, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, but it's absolutely nothing like tournaments. And so I had to go buy a second set of terrain, which is absolutely fine. I don't mind doing that. But if you are kind of less, if you are more cash constrained, more conscious, don't want to spend like extra money more than you have to, then don't. And that way you can kind of make sure you get the terrain that's appropriate for you and what you want to play. Yeah, already I can see that this looks way more open than that. We've got to remember, obscuring applies to all these, etc. So maybe that's good, maybe it's not. I don't know. I've done that half. This. Now we flip over and we do this side. So this is going to be more of my back, but we're just going to try to done quickly. I just wanted, as I say, this was a spontaneous video where I was like, you know what, this might be something people find really useful, and equally they may not at all. But because you have to learn how to set up kits or terrain at events, this is kind of a useful thing to just learn how to do anyway. Obviously, once you get more, you will get guidance on how they're set up. So all this is practice. Also, the faster you can set up terrain at an event, the more time you get to actually play the event or play the round. It is a very strange kind of work of Warhammer where you're actually incentivized to turn up early-ish, get your board set up early-ish, then kind of go from there. Because why I always turn up early as I go to when I go to turn up to my round early when I go to it. Just makes my life that much easier. And there, go. and we have a second set of terrain set up. And then what to be? So let me just get all this set up. Either way, speaker is going to spectators from the back over there. Just give me a second, I'll pull my chair over, down. And I'll actually get my camera set up properly again. And back to where we started. I think maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. There. That is the process I go through most Saturday mornings ahead of playing Warhammer. It takes, what time is it now? I started at like 8:30 and it's about 9:30. It takes about an hour to set up 2 tables. Obviously, events, you don't get an hour to set them up. You have much, much less time. That's why getting to a table is important. And it's why I'm very diligent with it, because I play Sisters, which typically uses my entire clock. I am trying to get faster with it, but I am just very conscious that I don't want to kind of ruin it for my friends or the people I play against. So I spend the time each morning setting up tables when I'm here. My friends will turn up in about an hour, and then we'll try to play 2 games across the 2 tables twice. So 4 total games of Warhammer in a day. When we are seriously practicing for events, we will do this every weekend leading up to them, which is kind of, that's what we did going into Goonhammer and going into Leeds GT and then the Leodis GT. And it massively, massively helps. Like at my very first tournament that I went to, which was an RTT, I came second, going undefeated, and it was purely because I had spent kind of the past 3 months practicing solidly every weekend with the same army. So I knew it inside out. So even though other people were probably more experienced tournament-wise, I just knew my army perfectly and was able to play it as needed and so on. Then at the Leeds GT, it was exactly the same. We practiced for it. I had less of a good result, only going 3-2, but it is what it is, and so on. And then when we went to the Leodis GT, I came second, only losing to double Catan Necrons, which is a very hard matchup, which is also a game I think I could have won. And again, we'd practiced 2 games every weekend for kind of a month leading up to it and so on. Now, this isn't something that I would recommend everyone do, because my word, it is a lot of Warhammer and it is challenging and it is tough. But if it's something you love, being able to set up tables like this, have all my friends come over, be able to play with them, it's really helped create a sense of community and a sense of kind of, actually, we're all going to these tournaments together sort of thing, which has been really nice. I haven't actually played at that many just stores or friendly local game stores. Hello, Pika, do you want to come up? Don't bite me. No, don't nip. Naughty. But as a result of having this, we don't really need to now. When all 6 of us are playing, and there will probably be more in the future. Right, come here, darling. Come on. You want attention? Come over here. When all 6 of us are playing, yes, it probably would make sense to go to an event. Come on. Yes, there you go. Who's my big Pika? You're my big Pika. This is Pika, for those who haven't noticed. She is wonderful. And yeah, she is sat here purring. But yeah, this is my kind of weekly Warhammer routine. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, please do feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to share them. Hopefully this will help give some people some confidence in setting up their own terrain to practice in or just play games on at home. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it's been a long one, but yeah, do feel free to like, comment, subscribe, everything like that. and I will see you in my next video. Thank you very much. Bye.